thumbs up. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the December 12th, 2018 meeting of the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. We have one selectman who's not here with us tonight. He's recovering after surgery, and we wish him well and a speedy recovery. Mika, thank you. Now just a quick point of personal privilege, not on the agenda. I understand that Mr. Adamovich received a recognition award from the Connecticut Association for Health, Physical Education, and Recreation and Dance, and I was invited and I couldn't attend that night because I was at an Amity the special awards dinner. So I can't be in two places at once, and I had to go to that. So I thought, well, I'll just hold on to this, and every time I see you, I forget to do it. So I'm going to do it tonight. On behalf of the town of Woodbridge, I congratulate you on this high achievement dated at Woodbridge, Connecticut, this 13th day of December 2017. So I just wanted to give you this award from the Board of Selectmen in the town.
I guess if you hang around long enough.
Yeah, I know, but congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry I wasn't there, but thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks for coming out on the cold night, John.
It's cold.
Yes, it is. Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, we both take our glasses off. Look younger.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go get warm. Best to Kathy and everybody. Stay warm. See you soon. See you Saturday. And now we'll go back to the agenda. Item 1, Woodbridge Board of Education Superintendent Bob Gilbert. You're in the seat.
John's relieved he was in trouble tonight.
I said to Bob, this might be my last night, I guess.
No.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay.
No. I wanted to surprise him.
I was surprised.
It was, see?
That's a nice surprise.
Nope, I decided I was going to surprise him.
Is this supposed to be red or another color?
No, it's supposed to be red.
Red, okay. All right. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and good evening, and
Good evening.
Good to see all of you, and pleased to be here as I always am every month. I'm just handing you out our most recent parent update that gets sent out to all the families at Beecher Road School, and this happens every 6 to 7 weeks or so. We provide information. This is in addition to the principal's newsletter that goes out every other week. This update, you'll find some interesting things and some really important things that we do each year, such as recognize and celebrate our veterans, as well as highlight our student council and the different things that they do. So enjoy reading that if you haven't already seen it, and I hope that's a help to give us a little insight as to some of the things we do during the year. My report is fairly brief tonight, so I hope that's okay with you, but just want to talk first about enrollment. Enrollment for Beecher Road School is only going in one direction, as we know. Just to kind of go back a little bit, we ended June with 791 students. We projected to start this year at 811. We actually had 831, more than the projected, obviously, by 20. And that 831 in September has now grown to 839. And usually the trend is during the course of the year that number continues to rise, as it usually has over the past years. So we'll keep you posted on that. Again, we're one of the few districts and one of the few schools that probably is going in that direction. Most are going in a declining way, as you probably know from information you've heard through newspapers and other information about trends. Our extended day program also is very, very popular, and it continues to have record numbers as well. So obviously with more students in the school, there's going to be more students enrolled in extended day, and that certainly is the case. And certainly the school has a feel of a 24/7 institution, more than just from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So extended day is alive and well. Just a couple of information items about our Board of Education meetings. In November, our November Board of Education meeting featured a review by our administrative team on the strategic plan initiatives that we have undertaken since I arrived. We even had some of our fifth graders take part in that presentation, talking a little bit about their initiatives and their work. The fifth graders have embarked on a project-based learning initiative, and they use something called the Genius Hour to develop really powerful questions in projects. So they were part of our November Board of Education meeting. December's Board of Education meeting takes place this coming Monday, and our student council members who are featured in that news article, in that newspaper, will be presenting a little bit about their outreach activities and other areas that they work in around the school. This Monday's meeting also will feature my budget proposal for the 18-19 fiscal year. In terms of fiscal news, our current budget status for the current year right now, you might remember last month I brought you some good news, or some better news, I should say, that our deficit was reduced and substantially reduced by favorable health insurance changes. So that deficit last month, as I mentioned to you, went from $338 to $152,000. Today it remains about the same. We had a finance meeting this past Monday, and it remains relatively unchanged at around $148,000 in terms of our deficit, which is mostly driven by really unanticipated out-of-district costs, which is a common theme I know you've heard before, but that is what's driving that, and we'll be continuing to monitor that as we did last year as closely as we can, and to do everything we can to keep that as low as possible, or hopefully to even erase it. The budget proposal that I'll be bringing on Monday to the board, to the full board, I did bring a draft of that to the board subcommittee, finance subcommittee this past Monday. The main drivers I don't think you're going to be surprised at for our budget this year are enrollment growth, also special education needs. Our strategic plan initiatives also take a part in that budget. And we're also looking at a main driver in that budget of new cost efficiencies and some revenue streams that we have not looked at before. So basically, through the guidance that's been given to us by the town finance board, we're aiming to present a budget that will be providing a quality education for our kids, our growing enrollment, that is, and at the same time respecting the taxpayers of Woodbridge. December is filled with many classroom and school-wide presentations, as you can well imagine, and many activities, and there's a lot of parent involvement around the school during the month of December, so it's a really great time to be at Beecher Road, so you're welcome anytime to stop in the office, sign in, and be part of that. A highlight of this month will be our annual December concert for the band and chorus, which will take place next Wednesday, actually a week from tonight, at 6:30. You're all invited to that, of course, and I thank you for your ongoing support, and happy holidays to all of you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
Just one. So we ended last year at 791?
Yeah, it's 791 in the building, and then there was, and plus the students who are outplaced out of district, so it was actually more like 799. So 791 in the building, and plus the outplaced students who we got.
839, does that include outplacement as well?
No.
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 So what would that be with outplacement?
Another 6.
So we're up 45 people or something like that.
845, right.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
Anybody else? Happy holidays.
Okay, happy
Thank you
holidays to
very
all of you.
much.
Okay, hope you have a good meeting.
Stay safe and enjoy.
Thanks.
Now we move on to item 2, the first selectmen's report. So,
Do you have copies of that for us or not?
of what?
Your report.
No, I don't usually. If you want one, I can make it later. Or you can watch it on TV again. Okay.
You want to go to sleep?
Yeah, could. Yeah. It's got scratch notes on though. Okay. There are a few items I'd like to address in my first selectmen's report this month. I'd like to start by again thanking all of you for your efforts and unanimous support of the emergency radio system upgrade. Thank you also to the townspeople for their support. As you all know, the project's funding was approved at 2 meetings on December 5th, immediately after the special town meeting we called for this purpose. Now the project will be moving into the purchase and installation phase. As I said at the special town meeting, the Board of Selectmen will take further steps to continue our due diligence with the establishment of an oversight committee charged with making recommendations to the Board of Selectmen for action, so we remain on top of the details of this project. I promise to keep you all informed and involved as we move forward. Another focus this past month has been on efforts to address the old firehouse. As you know, there is a steep grant as well as a portion of the insurance settlement funds that must be expended no later than June 2018. At least a steep grant, not necessarily the insurance funds, right? Yep. We have had an old firehouse steep grant ad hoc committee headed by Bob Tucker directing this work. Next, the question will be, what use will we make of this building? There's already been a recommendation to move the Recreation Department's fitness room from the center building over to Bays 2 and 3, and to have the antique fire truck on display in Bay 1. That leaves the upstairs portion of the building, which will require build-out to suit whatever purpose we decide for it. Again, none of this has been voted on. It will all be our decision once all the pieces come together. Amity Superintendent Chip Dumais approached me with an intriguing proposal. Amity has been searching for a location for its Transition Academy, a program that delivers special ed services to students ages 18 through 21 who are preparing for life after high school. Currently, the Amity District pays tuition fees for these students to attend an out-of-district placement. The present fiscal year annual cost for that tuition is approximately $200,000, which is about $40,000 a student, not including transportation cost. Dr. Dumais and his team envision their own program to handle an increase in such students that they are projecting over the next several years. They would like to save costs for the district, and thereby our taxes, by bringing the required services in-house. Tony Genovese and I led the Amity team on a walk through the old firehouse on November 20th, and Amity is now putting together a proposal to build out and utilize either part or all of the second floor. We're planning to have Dr. Dumais attend our January 10th Board of Selectmen meeting to present the Amity proposal. Subsequently, I was also approached with a proposal from representatives from the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society that would complement the use of Bay 1 to incorporate the display of historic artifacts and photos alongside the antique fire truck. On November 28th, I joined in on another walkthrough at the old firehouse with Town Clerk Stephanie Charleglio and members of the Historical Society, Barbara Hagen-Smith and Muffy German. We will further explore this expanded quote-unquote museum use of Bay 1, and I will have more information soon. Simon Donato, who has written a history of the Flats area of Woodbridge, is also working with us. He's very excited about this as well, and the Historical Society to make this happen. Again, I will keep the board informed as this progresses. Nothing will be decided without a vote of the board. On November 29th, a contingent of Town Hall staff, Tony Genovese, Terry Gilbertson, Sheila McCrevin, and I attended the annual CT Conference of Municipalities, CCM Convention. This was a terrific opportunity to hear what other towns and cities are doing, learn about best practices, and hear new ideas for us to consider. For me, some of the highlights were the networking opportunities and the brand new Sustainable Connecticut Initiative, which Sheila will talk about more in her report later this evening. It's very exciting. We will also be hearing in more detail later in our agenda about an economic development initiative for our town. I met with Jody Alland and Jamie Scott, Chair and Vice Chair of the Economic Development Commission, on November 16th to get their input. I'm hoping they're going to join us for that part of the program this evening when we hear the CERC presentation. And we will also get to the details on the public opinion survey regarding the former CCW later in our agenda tonight. So I'll just briefly let you know about some other activities I participated in since our November board meeting. November 10th, I took part in 2 Veterans Day ceremonies, one at Beecher Road School in the early morning and one in the Center Gym, which was orchestrated by Barry Joseph. He did a wonderful job, as usual. On November 14th in the evening, I attended an event at Amity Medical School. Amity Middle School. Take a breath. Bethany, to show their Narrative 4 initiative, which is a program to help students learn and build empathy with each other. On November 15th, I attended the monthly SCROG meeting, and on the 18th, I went to the crafts fair at Our Lady of the Assumption Church. November 20th, I attended the Interfaith Thanksgiving service, also hosted by Our Lady of the Assumption this year. It was a lovely opportunity to have people of all faiths join with each other in the spirit of unanimity and peace. On November 20th, the Connecticut Department of Transportation came to Town Hall to brief me on the state of the long-term project to reconfigure the Wilbur Cross Parkway exit 59 and how that fits with the major West Rock Tunnel project. We also invited staff members from New Haven and Hamden City Halls so we could all hear the same information. I let the DOT officials know my thoughts and stressed how vital these 2 projects will be, especially to our economic development plans. I look forward to more information to share with you soon. If anyone from the board is interested in sitting in on any of these meetings, please let me know. Also on the 20th, I was delighted to take part in a ceremony at Hamden City Hall to induct a dog named Arlen as an Arlo as an honorary member of the Handon Police Department's Canine Unit. Woodbridge Animal Control Officer Ashley Sakalarikis, I did it, adopted Arlo from the Branford Animal Shelter. He has an inoperable heart condition, making him not adoptable to the general public, so she's going to take care of him until his life is over. In coming together at events like this, I hope to lay the groundwork to further explore shared services with our surrounding municipalities. On December 3rd, I stopped by the Darling House for their annual holiday open house, which featured yummy cookies, thank you, Muffy, I ate yours, and punch, and a lovely choral performance. On December 6th, I attended a regional economic outlook breakfast sponsored by the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. And also on December 6th, I visited Beecher Road School Extended Day After School program to meet the robotics team known as the Hawks. These impressive young people presented their most recent project to me, which is a smartphone app they are designing, which would assist people in locating clean water in the event of emergency. And it's a real app. It's not, just an exercise. It's amazing. Over this past snowy weekend, I happened to drive by the Country Club property on Sunday and saw several cars parked on Johnson Road, and many folks, young and old, were sledding on the hills. It was just spectacular to see that. Finally, thank you, right? Finally, you're happy. I would like to wish all of you and everyone in our wonderful town of Woodbridge a healthy and happy holiday season. Thank you for the honor of serving as your first selectman, and I wish everyone a 2018 filled with peace and prosperity. Thank you. And now we will turn to, wait a minute, I got one more thing. Now that we head into our liaison report agenda item, I will just note that David Lober, thank you David, has agreed to take on the liaison role to CUPOP, as Terry has found this meeting conflicts with her role on the Amity Board of Education. Can't be in two places at the same time.
Tried.
I know, I've tried it too, it doesn't work. They both meet on the same evening, so thank you again, David, for agreeing to do that. And thank you for your service to that board. Just trying to do it. My liaison report at the November 20th Board of Fire Commissioners meeting, we went over the department's operating budget proposal. I'd like to highlight one item. The repair and maintenance line has been trending higher due to the aging fleet and an associated increase in cost to keep our public safety vehicles on the road as we phase in the purchase of replacement trucks. We're getting every last dollar out of each vehicle, but we need to reinvest, of course. But the need to reinvest, of course, continues. I also had chaired two meetings of the Animal Shelter Building Committee, and we are at this point exploring ways to expend funds from the STEEP grant pending receipt of grant and charitable monies. I'll keep the board posted on this as funding decisions are made. We have made no decisions to spend any money yet, but I will bring them to you because you have to vote on them once we do them. And with that, I would like to turn to, I'll start this time, Terry, liaison reports.
Bob Gilbert gave a very thorough description of what's going on at Beecher, so I don't need to recap their last meeting. The most, I think, important thing for the board to know is obviously the enrollment going up, and something we need to keep an eye on, and I'm sure it's going to come out when we have the budget meetings. I was at the Amity Board of Ed meeting last night. It was a very long meeting, but they had a lot to cover. Some of the highlights that were discussed were the shared services, specifically with IT, which the town's exploring and remains to be a priority for them as well. Any type of shared services and cost savings that we can do for the town. They also had a presentation by their auditor, and the good thing was there were no red flags that came up after the recent audit. So that was good to hear. Amity Middle School Bethany students designed inspirational quotes and positive slogans for coffee sleeves that the Starbucks in Woodbridge is going to be distributing. So on Friday, December 22nd, I would encourage everybody to go down and buy a hot beverage at the Starbucks in Woodbridge and be inspired. That's pretty much it.
Neat. Thank you. Joe.
Yes, at Planning and Zoning on December 4th, I believe the major issue is that the board is updating zoning regulations, and they're hoping to have a public hearing at the end of January.
Great. Okay, thank you. Joe, you ready?
Yeah, I don't have any.
Okay, thank you. And David.
So I went to the Human Services Commission meeting. They had a Harvest and Holiday Fair, and they netted $6,643.68 from that event, which I thought was impressive. I spoke to the Cub Scouts on behalf of Beth on Friday.
Yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanking them for their efforts on their food and toy collections. There was a presentation of the ramp design. I'm thinking that somebody from Human Services will come and make a presentation on that tonight.
No, because we're just going to refer to for an 824 review to plan and zoning, so I don't think they're planning to come at this point. Probably they'll end up going to plan and zoning.
There's also discussion on improving wayfaring signage to direct people to the Human Services offices. The restroom construction is expected to start hopefully in January or February. There's a 6-week time frame for construction, and they have the money available for that. They are still waiting the decision by the state on their steep grant, however. The Rotary Club provided 25 families with $50 gift certificates and pumpkin pies for Thanksgiving. I think we should thank the Rotary for all of their good work. Youth Services has developed a Shop with a Cop program where a police officer accompanies a deserving youth for shopping and bowling. And for those people who want to know why there were so many police cars, the annual bowl, that was the reason. There's an iPhone photography class which is going on. They had a field trip to the Apple Store, and they're planning to shoot around the Yale campus. They have, and this is just lovely, they have a kindness club. And the kindness club is a youth craft group, and they're making dog beds and toys for the animals that were displaced by Hurricane Harvey and presenting them to the Connecticut Humane Society.
Mm-hmm.
On the negative side, their enhancement grant may be cut by the state budget constraints, and the State Department of Education grants to the Connecticut Youth Services may also be cut. In their budget, they're thinking about possibly getting computers, and they're also thinking about getting the grant from AT&T to cover the cost of that. They have no additional hours scheduled, and they're keeping their funding level. So that is the Human Services. The library. The library budget is up 2.1%. That's despite contractual salary increases of 2.5%. So they've managed to cut back in other areas. Their savings are due to staffing changes in the children library and other budget adjustments. The Lion delivery system has been put in place. So with the statewide services, they're getting roughly 21 bins of books a week, where the state was only giving them 1 bin every 2 weeks. So it's a much more satisfying system. The 3 new hires from the staff are all working out well. There were 644 books that were borrowed and 821 lent through the Lion system, and total circulation was over 8,000 books last month. And they have some wonderful programs which I wanted to pitch because I don't think they get enough publicity. There are book talks with Larissa Krakow, who is a Beecher Road School media specialist. 29 children attended. These are 5th and 6th graders. They had a book talk on a newly released book, and almost all of those titles on these newly released books were checked out at the end of the talk. There's a graphic novel club for the 3rd and 4th graders. 22 attended. It was also run by Larissa Krakow, and she does STEM and crafts programming with these students. There is a new format of book called a Vox book. It's a reading along book, and they have an MP3 player built into the cover of the book. So, something new. And in their community, that activities. They had a total of 347 participants last month in their community activities. 200 mini golf, 43 cooking classes, and 30 were at the garden club. We also had a flower workshop, a senior book group, long-term care seminar, and the last item, which I unfortunately missed, they had a birds of prey exhibit. They had a golden eagle, 2 hawks, a kestrel and owl, and their mascot, a box turtle. That had
Cool.
39 activities. That's really cool. I didn't realize the largest library had all of these programs.
Is there
Okay.
something burning?
Yes,
Yeah, I smell it.
either that or something's like smoking outside.
Okay.
Right.
No windows are open now. Yeah.
There is some smoke. I definitely smell smoke.
Oh dear. Okay.
Where are the fire guys when you need
Is there a
Yeah.
kitchen in?
Is Anthony around?
Nobody's using the kitchen right now, is there?
them? Smell like food smoke.
In the kitchen?
No.
It's not kitchen smoke.
No.
Check the kitchen, see if anybody left anything in the microwave.
It's,
Yeah.
In this room.
it's just in this room.
Who's smoking under the
I
desk?
think somebody's coming from outside.
Okay.
I think somebody's smoking a cigarette and it's wafting around.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll keep going. We've got public comments next, but that's at 6 o'clock, so we'll skip 5 and 6 because they're not here yet, and the trail runners will go to item 8, if that's okay with everyone?
Sure.
Okay, administrative officers
Okay.
report.
All
Thank
right.
you, you're on.
Okay, the first is the monthly report. And your monthly report for through November is a budgetary surplus of about $130,000, which brings our fund balance to a little over $5 million, or 10.63% of our annual expenditures for the year. So some highlights for you. First is interest income is projected at $50,000 surplus. Rates are continuing to go up, as you've probably heard, and so that benefits our interest income account. Secondly, intergovernmental revenues. This is a constantly moving target, and the latest is a budget shortfall of about $300,000 from our budget to where the actuals are at the moment, and this includes a recent ECS reduction that happened a few weeks ago, shortly after the budget was adopted. So you can see some of the highlights. It's mainly ECS grant is down $86,000. The elimination of the elderly tax reimbursement of $41,000, and the elimination of the revenue sharing grant of $247,000. Those are the main items that we faced. So that's a major shortfall in our budget. On the positive side, however, the town will receive $553,000 in surplus funds from the Amity District operations ending 6/30/2017. So in this projection, there's a $220,000 reserved for next year's budget, and $332,000 is unbudgeted revenue in the current year. So the unbudgeted revenue in the current year adds to our surplus. The Board of Ed has indicated earlier $148,000 deficit. I'm going to try and do this without choking from that smoke. Amity School District also is planning to reduce its current year allocation by $178,000. So in addition to the surplus from last year, their current year will be reduced by $178,000, and I'll explain why. In the budget process last year, the governor had recommended that all special education excess cost grant funding go to the towns. That included regional districts. So Amity took it out of their budget, anticipating not receiving it, and our budgets in the 3 towns went up accordingly. Well, that did not pass the legislature, and so Amity will continue to get its special education excess cost grant funds, which means that essentially they will reduce their allocation based on the amount they anticipate receiving. Because originally they had budgeted not receive those revenues, and those revenues offset their budget. So it's like a sort of a shell game there. And essentially, it was so it was budgeted for twice. In other words, they budgeted to not receive it. We budgeted that we wouldn't receive it either. So that's how you get to $130,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Tony?
You explained that much better because when I sat through the board, I didn't understand it. But it actually makes more sense the way you explained it. The cigar.
It seems
Do
to
you
be
think
getting
we ought
stronger.
to? Yeah, it's getting worse. Do you
It
think?
seems to be coming from the back hallway by the exit, which is where that mechanical room.
Okay. Do you think that we should call the fire department and have them come over and check it out?
I think so.
I think it would be a good idea.
Is it stronger back there?
Oh, you mean it's down by the generator room?
Oh.
Maybe a brief recess.
Want to take a brief
Yeah.
recess? Thank you. And we're back. Thank you. Next is under the administrative officer's report, tax refunds.
So the tax collector has presented property tax refunds in the amount of $3,343.42 as listed in the package that you have.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we accept.
They're all motor vehicle.
They're all motor vehicle this
Yep.
time. There's no real estate refunds or personal property refunds. So I'll make a motion that we approve the motor vehicle refunds at $3,343.42 as listed by our tax collector, Pat Crisco. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Thank you. Are there any funding requests?
No.
Okay.
And
And
there's no animal rescue
there's no,
facility.
we're
Yeah.
still not ready. I keep it on there to remind me to keep you guys informed once we have something to ask you for. Okay.
I do have another.
Yeah, oh, Tony has another.
So every year, the town goes out to bid for gasoline, diesel, and heating oil. And we go out to bid with Orange and Bethany and Amity and Regional School District in Prospect. I think it's 15. And anyway, in any event, when we bid the commodities, we have to lock in within an hour. We've done this before in the past here. So generally, the Board of Selectmen will give Beth and I authority to lock into the lowest price when we go out to bid.
I've never done it before. It was Ellen
It was
in the
Ellen,
past,
yeah,
but
So that's my request.
So you're requesting for permission to go to bid.
To lock into a
To lock
price.
into.
Normally what happens is I would get the price, then it'd come to the Selectmen and you would approve the bid, but we have 1 hour to lock in a price or the price is
you guys
gone.
want to just stay here for
Unless you
the
want to come
next
here,
couple of
you
weeks,
know.
and, you know.
When we do it in the middle of the day.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to authorize Beth and Tony, I guess?
Yeah.
As well.
Ours is just gas and diesel because we have natural gas. Doesn't that? We don't use the heating oil.
Authorize you to participate in that auction and go ahead and lock in a price without the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you.
That's approved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank
you.
you. And I think we can get personnel in.
Sure.
Okay. Move on to the Personnel Committee. The Personnel Committee met yesterday, 9 o'clock here at Town Hall. The members of the Personnel Committee are Terry Schatz, me, and David Lober. And we had 2 items on the agenda, which I'll turn over to Tony to discuss, and then we'll discuss as a group and go from there. So, thank you.
I'm just getting the applications out of here.
Yeah.
So the these are 2 vacant positions that are in our budget and that have been vacant for one reason. One was vacant due to a retirement and the other was vacant due to a resignation. So the first position is our nighttime custodian position, which you actually was William's position. And then we had Craig here, and Craig gave his notice. And so Anthony has been filling in for us, and let me hand these out here. When we interviewed for this position, Anthony was actually our number 2 selection. And so we would like to, he's been filling in for us for the past month, I'd say. And he's been working out very well, and so we'd like to offer that position full-time to Anthony.
I think most of the people at Town Hall are pleased, everyone actually, there's no one that isn't pleased with his work so far. And I don't know if David, you or Terry, you'd like to offer anything more about what happened at the meeting, but we as a group voted to approve this as a full-time hire.
And he's also a volunteer.
He's a volunteer firefighter,
Right.
which helps. And
So
I
we
guess,
had William, we replaced William.
right,
Craig.
Craig,
Right,
Craig's given notice.
right. And so,
Anthony was second in line,
when we did the
Craig.
interview
When we did the
process,
interviews.
but Anthony's been working here.
no, he's only been filling in since Craig will give his notice.
Okay, but he's been here for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, about,
Yeah.
I'd say 3 weeks, maybe. I'd say
Yeah.
3, 4
We
weeks.
had to have, you had to have someone be able to step up right away, and I guess, Tony
But
said,
just on a temporary basis,
right,
right?
until we brought it to the Personnel Committee and then to you.
Correct. Correct.
So his rate will be at custodian rate of $19.39 an hour, effective
Actually, we'd like to make them effective, both of these effective Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
Okay,
So is that the same rate that
the 18th.
Craig was at?
No,
And not the same rate, what was that?
no,
No, lower.
lower, yeah.
That's what I figured. So I'll make a motion that we approve hiring
Anthony Baradeska.
Baradeska
Yep.
Second.
At a rate of $19.39 an hour.
An hour
and the
for
rate,
that
effective
position.
12/18/27.
Yep.
Okay, I'll
12/18?
Yep.
Okay, you're going to second that, okay? Terry, you have anything to add on him? Joe, any questions? Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then the
Pretty
second
much he's back.
position that came up was for the position of senior clerk in the assessor's office.
Right.
We have to return these, right?
Well,
By the way, Anthony's, you want them back?
yeah,
You want them back, okay.
just because of the information, you probably don't want it.
Thank you.
We always have them on file if you ever want to. The second position is in our assessor's office, senior clerk.
Is it on? That's right.
Sure. And Tracy has been working with Betsy for probably a year, a little over a year and a half maybe, on a almost full-time basis, but about a little less than 30 hours a week. And so we would like to make her a full-time position. She would be replacing the previous senior clerk who retired, and Betsy has made a very strong argument that this should be a full-time position for her, that she's been putting in a lot of hours over the past year to try to make up for the shortage of hours in her office, and so that's what this
And
is for.
she also does,
She
you want to
does,
mention.
yeah,
the-
so she does
the
inspections for revaluation, so we don't have to hire a private contractor to do that. That saves the town quite a bit of money, but takes a lot of Betsy's time. So, which is one reason why this position is important, because Betsy's out of the office a lot.
And it's a busy
So at one time
office.
we had a full-time?
We did, yeah, about a little over a year ago.
And then we
And
stopped that,
we brought Tracy on
part-time.
three-quarter time, I'd say.
Three-quarter.
Yeah, and Tracy was retired from a previous municipality, which when she had a lot of experience, she was able to hit the ground running, and has worked out very well since she's been here.
And they kept the full-time salary in the budget,
Right.
so the position's still budgeted for,
That's right.
Correct.
which was one of the factors that we looked at.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many do we have in that office then? How many-
In the assessor's office?
Yeah.
Just two.
So
Betsy
so
and,
just those two?
yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion just to continue discussion to hire Tracy Tootle as a senior clerk in the assessor's office at a rate of $21.15 an hour,
Yeah.
effective 12/18/17.
12/18,
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I had some dealings with Tracy. I found her to be personable, efficient, very helpful. Yeah, she's a good hire,
Yeah,
in my
good.
opinion.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much. We'll return these if you don't mind.
Yep.
Collect them all. Okay. I think we can move on to item 10. I'm trying to fill everything up until 6 o'clock. Thank you. In your packets, you have a copy of the proposal that we received from the senior center related to the new ADA ramp, where it will be located. I don't know, but they're pretty good drawings. You can see exactly where it's going to go. And there's also, I believe, a schematic in there. I have 2 copies of everything. So, and as part of the process, we have to refer this to Plan and Zoning for an 824 review. So I would entertain a motion to send a request to Plan and Zoning Commission for an 824 review of the senior center ramp as proposed in our packet.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Because I probably can't answer them because it's, but we could try.
Who was the second of that?
Joe. Oh.
Next to the main entrance and the ramp goes down the chalk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank
Take
you.
out 2 windows here.
This is the site plan.
Betsy, can you give us 10 minutes?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe like 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. They're great.
So unfortunately, I don't have a lot to report right now, other than I'm glad to be back. I've been back for about 2.5 weeks, and I've been busy catching up and restarting some of the projects that I left off when I went back. So
And some new initiatives
No
too.
pictures?
it's new. I've got.
No
I
pictures or
could
anything?
easily spend 10 minutes doing it. That's
Yeah.
that's how you want to
I
spend
figured we would have
Yeah.
projected up on the
Yeah.
slide.
I could do a slideshow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Special project manager report. Shoot.
I have just something quick I can pass out.
Which I alluded to.
Yep.
But I
As
still see
Beth
my
mentioned, we're going to pass these around to you guys. Beth mentioned the Sustainable CT program. They had their big kickoff event at the CCM convention. They attracted everyone over to take a look at a map, and Beth had the opportunity to put a little sticker on the town of Woodbridge to say that we were taking their information and we were going to take a look at it. You'll see that it's got 9 categories of things that the town could optionally decide to do, take steps. The idea is that the local steps, all taken together around the state, will add up to real action at the state level. So there's a lot of things that go into being sustainable. It's not just like energy use of buildings, although that's included here. There are other things that would earn us points towards certification if we choose to go in this direction. We're just exploring it at this point. Things like there's a historic resource inventory, which could be built up from some of the other projects that have been done. The open space plan that our Conservation Commission has already been updating could possibly earn us some points. There's a lot here about the thriving local economy, and being good stewards of the land and natural resources. Looks like it might be a good fit for the town of Woodbridge, so we're going to continue to explore it. The Sustainability Ad Hoc Committee, this will match up with some of what they're working on. Their meeting at the end of January, so it'll be an item on their agenda, and then maybe more.
Yeah, get a nice award at the end in September.
I would like to get the award next year.
Yes,
at the CCM
right,
convention.
right.
So what does certification represent?
So certification, it's a way of communicating a bunch of various things that are happening to make us the kind of town we probably already are. It gets its recognition, but it also makes us eligible for opportunities for grant funding. So we would have to apply for some grant funding, but if we can show that we're making progress on these goals, we're more likely to get that kind of funding. So it also helps us to partner with other groups. So you'll see on the back it talks about businesses, college, universities, other nonprofits. So it's a way of pulling together a lot of people that are active in the community doing a lot of things. We could get them all on the same page for
Right.
this sort of thing.
And what is the source of that funding?
It's coming from the state, so it's state grants.
Does the state have money budgeted for that?
They do. Yes, I think that was, they must have gotten in under the wire
Okay.
because they had their launch. They're also going to have a local launch initiative. There's an event at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Science at the beginning of January. So they'll talk about the smaller communities around here. So we can match up maybe with some local partners and share services.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in meeting with them when they come with, let me know.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure it happens.
Yeah, we can
Anybody,
send
members of the
information.
board or would like to be involved,
And
shout
then
it out.
The only other thing on my report is to say the board and commission holiday party is coming up. This is our opportunity to thank all the volunteers who are serving on boards and commissions. It is tomorrow evening. So
Yep.
hope to see
Please
you
all
there.
come, stop in.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a lot of folks, I think. It's going to be good. Thank you. 5 minutes. Why don't we do town clerk's report and maybe minutes? We'll skip yours.
That's
because
okay.
It might take a little bit longer. Sorry, Jerry. Skip to item 14. You have in your packet the town clerk's report for November 1st, 2017 through November 30th. The state, $36,740.50. Town, $15,940.50. And the second one from July 1 through November 30th is also in there. State, $195,496.75, and the town, $81,756.75. Is there a motion to accept the town clerk's reports?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Let's pop through minutes and then we'll go to public comments. In your packet, you have the first one is the November 8th communications presentation on November 8th. It was a joint special meeting of Boards of Selectmen and Finance. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections, additions, changes? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next one, that has all the attachments. I have to get through, I'm sorry. There we go. The next item in your packet is the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen of November 8th. Minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So,
Second?
I have corrections to
Okay,
that.
go for it. We have to wait till we get a motion and a second before you can do the corrections, but now we have it, so shoot.
My liaison report, on page 4, where it says liaison report, you can denote it again for Mr. Wilbur, but that's okay. Last line, Coupop paragraph, it says, following Marilla, reason for opposition, there's a semicolon, and then it goes on to say, reducing to one page the application for benches, et cetera, et cetera. That is not part of Amy Morella's statement. That was a provision by the Coupop committee to change the application to a one-page application. So that needs to be corrected in the
Okay.
minutes.
Do you have the writing there that you could just pass to Mrs. Shaw and she'll make the
So
correction?
you want that to be, instead of just a second item after the semicolon, you want that to be stand alone?
It is right, and it should say, the board has reduced to one page the application for benches. Or the commission has reduced to one page.
Anything else? Any other additions, corrections, changes? All in favor with the amendments proposed by Dr. Lober? Thank you. Additions, corrections. Okay, thank you. Next one is, get to the pages here. Sorry, dropped that. Next one's Board of Selectmen special meeting on November 15th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any additions, corrections, or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And the last set is December 5th. Special meeting. I'm trying to get to them. I'm sorry, there's so much. Oh. Special Board of Selectmen meeting on December 5th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve? Second?
second.
Thank you. Any additions, corrections, changes? All in favor? And I thank you, Mrs. Shaw, for doing them so timely. Get them all done. Okay, thank you. Now it's almost 6 o'clock. 1 minute. Close enough? Okay, thank you. We'll begin public comments. Anyone, member from the public, wish to come up and address us? Hearing none, moving on. Thank you. This evening, let me just get to the page. You guys are so quick here. Let's see, sorry. This evening, we have on our agenda the item 5, Connecticut Economic Resource Center presentation. And I'd like to introduce Bob Santee, who's the president and CEO of CERC, as well as Courtney Hendricks, the vice president of municipal services. They're going to give us an overview of CERC and the proposal that is in your packet. And I want to thank Jamie Scott, our VP of Economic Development, for joining us. I've met with he and a lot of other folks, Jody Allant, our president, chairman as well, but thank you. So thanks for being here, Jamie. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. The
Thank
world's
you.
expert on economic development.
Okay. How could we go wrong?
I used to work for him.
I have to admit, I know a few people in the room. Senator Crisco.
I'm just going to
was chairman of the Commerce Committee when I was deputy commissioner of economic development. We did a lot of work together back then. Jerry was on the board of the Regional Growth Partnership when I was there. So, I've moved on, but not very far, because we've lived for 15 years in Westville, so I know a little bit about Amity and about Woodbridge, and we've been in conversations, I'd say, for about 2 years with Betsy and with Tony and with Ellen, and some of you, I hope, were at our workshop that we did about 2 years ago on economic development, which was really the start of the discussion. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes giving you an overview of CERC. And then I'd like to have Courtney, who is our Vice President of Municipal Services and has a background that's very fit for that, talk a little bit about sort of the menu of options that we've given you in this proposal. The first thing I'd say, I guess, is that economic development is a very conscious activity. Economic development doesn't happen unless somebody does it. And sometimes we think that economic cycles are the same thing as economic development, but economic development is different. It really says it requires you to say what your priorities are and what resources you're going to put to meeting those priorities. So that's one of the reasons that we're here. CERC is a public-private partnership. It's a nonprofit that operates at the state level. We are going to be 25 years old in 2018. We were created as a partnership primarily between the state's Department of Economic and Community Development and the state's regulated utilities. And originally, we received all of our support, our financial support, from the state's utilities. Those types of partnerships are not unusual around the country. They're less, you see fewer of them in New England. And this was created as a way of ensuring that there was continuity in the state's approach to economic development, regardless of who was governor or who's in the legislature, that, you know, we need to be doing business recruitment all the time. It should be something that the state is always working on, as an example. So we do have a board of directors that's made up of utility executives, state officials, a few other business representatives as well. And a few years ago, they set some priorities for us. And I'll talk about two main ones and then some supporting priorities. The first was to do business recruitment for the state of Connecticut. Some people don't even realize that we're recruiting businesses to Connecticut now. The other side of the coin everybody knows about, because we have major companies that have announced that they're leaving Connecticut. But we are also bringing smaller companies that are going to be part of our innovation ecosystem as a state to Connecticut. And that was a priority. And for us, that means that we have representatives internationally in Israel, Brazil, and hopefully starting next month in Germany. And we are working closely with those representatives to make Connecticut a welcoming place. So that's the other piece of the priority. If we're going to invite global companies to come to Connecticut, towns need to be ready to receive them. And that means working with towns to build the capacity to do economic development better. And that's one of the reasons we started this series of workshops, which we did 2.5 years ago, which we've done for most of the South Central towns now, in partnership with the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. So how do you build capacity to do economic development? Well, the first is education, and that's why we do the workshops. And the second is to be able to assist towns when they need assistance. And it can be a broad range of things, and we've talked to many of you about the broad range of things that we can do. But most towns do not have a full-time economic development person on staff, particularly towns that are the size of Woodbridge. You don't see that very often. So how do you do economic development? Do you leave that to the planner to do, which happens in a lot of towns? Well, you don't have a planner. So you really leave it to the EDC, a group of volunteers to a large degree, to do the pieces of economic development you'd like to see done. Well, what we've been talking about is augmenting your capability to do economic development, being conscious about economic development, helping set priorities for economic development for your community, and then start with a couple of things that we can do for you, see if the relationship works out, and build as we go. So we did provide you with a proposal that has a number of options in it. I'm calling them options. We'd be happy for you to accept all of them. But we understand that we might need to start with a couple of things. So I thought I'd now turn it over to Courtney and let her talk a little bit about what's in the proposal, and then maybe we can have a conversation about how we might get started.
Good. Thank you.
Sure, and is that,
Doesn't move.
that's easy.
It's only because the tables are.
Oh, so I can do that.
Yeah.
It says directly in the records, I want to be clear. Good evening, and thank you for having us. So this all, by the way, stems from ongoing conversations that we've had since Beth has come into her position, but also prior to that with senior staff as well as with Ellen. So this has kind of been close to a year in the works, with then ultimately resulting in this proposal, just so you all know the history of that. And just by way of introduction to myself, I've been an economic developer on the ground in Connecticut prior to coming to CERC about 2 years ago for the last decade. I was in Farmington, and then I was in Enfield, and prior to that was in Austin, Texas. So I have economic development, local experience, and that is what we're bringing to these towns and cities that are looking for some assistance. So just an introduction of what our staff is doing with some of the smaller towns especially. But I wanted to walk through the proposal with you just in case you did have any questions, and just again to review for those of you who weren't part of the original conversation. So the first piece of the work scope includes a self-assessment tool. That's something that, following the workshop that Bob referred to that we've done here already, is often a second step that we do, because towns will often say to us, okay, now what? We're excited, we've had the workshop, we're all kind of part of the team, what do we do next? And this 70-question questionnaire covers all kinds of economic development factors, like land use process, like marketing your town, like who's your point of contact for prospective businesses. All those kinds of areas get have you answer the question, we're doing this or we're not doing this, and this is a priority to us or this is not a priority to us. And then we are able to analyze those results to say, where do you line up with something's a priority but we're not currently doing it? And then we're able to really hone in on priority areas that you want to be focusing on. So that was the first part of the scope that we offered to have you all as senior elected officials, but also senior staff and EDC members, sort of the same folks that, if you recall, who were in the workshop. Land Use Board and Commission members are always invited to that as well. Sort of that same leadership group to take the survey, and then we would help by, again, analyzing that and then coming back with a facilitated discussion of those results. So that was part one. The second part, again, based on conversation that we had with Tony and Sheila and Beth, was staffing the Economic Development Commission. That's something that a lot of towns struggle with in terms of finding a meaningful function for economic development commissioners, especially because they are volunteer and don't have a lot of time, but would like to really have a meaningful
function in the town. So that is something that we're comfortable doing. Of course, in Farmington and in Enfield, I was staffing the Economic Development Commission, so I have a lot of experience doing that. But I think, again, it really allows for someone to become a trusted advisor both to that group and allows for the Economic Development Commission to then become that visible group to help support existing businesses and prospective businesses. And what comes along with simply the logistics of developing agendas and writing up minutes and being at the meetings is really just being that guide to offer ideas, to, let's say, help the EDC put on an event for businesses in town, put together business visitations and start doing them on behalf of and with EDC members, that kind of thing. So I think along with simply what you're thinking of, the before meeting and during meeting and after meeting sort of logistical things, it's also can be a very effective way to start some meaningful economic development going on. And then lastly, we talked quite a bit about the Amity section of town, and we know that the Yale Urban Design Workshop did some work previously, and I think those that when we talked about it was kind of saying property owners are some are willing, some are not necessarily, in terms of looking at a redevelopment vision for that area of town. So how do we sort of start? And so we talked about really wrapping our arms around who those owners are, what their attitudes are, is there a vision, what are their needs and desires, and what are certainly your vision for that section of town. And we would do that through visitations and all of that kind of hand-holding with engaging those property owners. And then following that, we could really help with kind of a comprehensive plan, getting that work that Yale Urban Design plus the new input that we're getting from current property owners and from you all in terms of a vision, and really start being able to actually implement that. So that has everything to do from, where are the buildings, what's the ingress and egress, what's the connectivity, where is the public open space, what do you want that to become, and how do you get there? So that could include, I know you've been doing some rezoning recommendations, but that may include also talking about financing models. That, again, is heavy on engaging the property owners and assisting them one by one with projects and redevelopment and reinvestments in their properties. So, again, we really want to focus on implementation. That's something we know is a value for you all. And I hope that that's helpful in terms of what we've laid out, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I also, before I forget, want to acknowledge Jody Alonto, Chairman. She's now here. Thank you also for coming along with Jamie. Let's start with questions.
Yeah, I have some questions. I know when you make a presentation, you talk in kind of broad generalities, the kind of things that your approach to problem solving. Now, I know that you've worked in some of the towns in Connecticut, and specifically you mentioned Farmington and Trumbull. I lived in Trumbull, and one of the things that you point out is that Trumbull had no sense of place, and that was something that you addressed. I'm anxious to hear how you did that.
You want to start that? I'll start it. Well, we did a workshop. We actually brought Alan Plattis from the Yale Urban Design Workshop with us to start the dialogue. So it was kind of a follow-up to the first workshop we do, but this was really specific to how do you create great places. That's it so far. That was our first effort with them. And you know what happens, by the way? There's things like elections happen in the middle of things, and you may know that Tim Herbst did not run for re-election in Trumbull. So we'll have to evaluate whether that changes things in Trumbull. They have a great staff person who really understands the need for creating a downtown. But the question is whether she'll be retained by the new chief elected official.
I think what's interesting too with that is it was about sort of the conceptual pieces of placemaking, but it really went deeper than that. They had identified a place that they thought could make a great town center, and it involved some retail, some trailheads, and some public spaces, some municipal buildings. And so we were able to hone in with Yale Urban Design and say, if they're really looking at this place, or excuse me, this space, and turning it into a great place. You know, how would that really function? And so we were able to bring maps and drill down into some real specifics about how you would engage those property owners or those properties that are municipally owned, and help them sort of literally with a visual layout of making that space into a place, and then programming that place to make it vital and energetic and fun.
So I wanted to give you another example, because I think where you were getting at is implementation, probably. The example I shared with some of the folks here is North Haven. Mike Frieda, the first selectman of North Haven, asked us to do an analysis when Anthem Blue Cross sold their building to Quinnipiac. So what happened there? You have a whole demographic shift in that area of town. So you've got college students now, albeit law students and med students. What does that change of population mean to that area of Route 5 between exit 12 and exit 13 on I-91? What's the mix of products and services that should be offered there based on that change? So we have a very robust economic research staff. And what they did was a highest and best use analysis of that area to say, what are the current uses? What's the change in demographics? What's the possible new retail, service, housing options that should go in there? Mike, he's very nice about saying that he takes that report of ours. Every time he has a prospect that comes into town, he has it in his pocket and he pulls it out. And he says, so you're a restaurant. Do you see what Cirque said about restaurants? You're going to do well here if you come here. And he claims that that's how he has recruited a lot of businesses to North Haven. And the nice thing is that, you know, I may talk up here a lot of times. You know, Courtney's actually been on the ground and done this stuff in Farmington, and you know, when we do the training, she talks about doing events. You know, it may seem like a simple thing, but somebody has to do it. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we now have a staff person who is a part-time staffer for Beacon Falls. So she does the EDC, she goes to the land use boards, she's looking for real estate opportunities for the town. So that's the type of thing that we would plan to do.
Well, you know, Woodbridge has a small population, and small populations don't really support that much in the way of business. So you have to figure out a way to get people from the outside to come in, and for that you would need something which would attract them. And how do you go about doing that? I mean, I have some ideas about that, but you know, these are just kind of free-floating ideas. But as I said, you have to get more people in to use services in town than are actually living in the town. Right. Make it worthwhile for those.
Right, I think you want to do that, but I thought you were going in a little different direction. There also isn't unanimity about the amount of development that should occur in a town like Woodbridge. So the question is, where do you do it and what do you do? And, you know, if you look at the assets of Woodbridge, you want to do this type of development in Amity, mm-hmm. and you want to make better use of the physical assets you've got down there. Right. It's not, frankly, not well planned. And
I don't think it was planned at all. I think
well,
it just
okay. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
It kind of grew out of you know, kind of an agrarian area in town.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you do have to. You know, that's. You don't know where the New Haven line is. Most people don't know where the New Haven line is down there. So you have a built-in population. Mm-hmm. You have an exit on the parkway. So you have the infrastructure necessary to bring people to that area. Mm-hmm. And then you have to do an analysis that says, what is missing here? And what would make sense, which is the analysis we did for North Haven.
I know Jody wanted to ask something, but I just want to check in with the board first, if you don't mind, and see if anyone else has any questions first.
I just had one question. So the $12,000, that's really specific just for the implementation phase, where you're either recruiting new businesses to come in or executing the plan that we're, you know, looking at designing?
Yeah, I think it's pretty specific to the real estate analysis, right? Yeah, it would be the beginning of implementation. So, I mean, some of the questions we've gotten here over the last year or two is, where do you start? We don't control any of these properties. Well, you look for opportunities. I happen to go to Amity Meats quite often. And when they did their expansion, they ran into some issues because it's such a popular place that there's not enough parking. I mean, I had to park on the sidewalk on the other side of the street. So, and there's a little battle going on, I understand, between an attorney who has an office next door and who gets the parking and all of this stuff. That's a natural opportunity to go in and say, how do we resolve that? You know, maybe we find another spot for the attorney. I don't know. I shouldn't say this while people are listening. Right?
You're on television.
So no, but that's the you do look for opportunities. What property owner is most likely to want to do something with their property? Can we talk to them about what financing might be available should they decide to do something that was more consistent with the town's vision of what they'd like to see? So that's the type of work we'd be doing too.
Yeah, and then I would say also just making sure there's a product, an actual plan that you can be using going forward to talk to property owners and others when they're saying, what's going on with Amity? You know, you can say, here is our vision laid out, and it's very, specific.
Joe, any questions? Joe?
No.
Okay. Jody wanted to ask something, I guess.
I just wanted to address Mr. Glover's question. And I feel like we're coming in this, I'm so happy that you're here. It's wonderful that you're here as chair of the EDC, and I'm sure with my vice chair here, we would love to have your help. I do want to point out that we did engage the Urban Design Workshop under Ed Sheehy, when Ed Sheehy was the first selectman, and some of this has been done. And so I think we can I encourage you to go and look at exactly, and we can have a discussion exactly what was done, because I think we actually can start some of this process in the middle. With respect to Mr. Lover's question, what Yale looked at was we have a tremendous amount of traffic coming through. We actually have customers coming through because Litchfield Turnpike and Amity Road are actually thoroughfares that people use to commute either to the highway, to 15, from anywhere up to 84, or just going to get to 15 or going into New Haven. So they found we actually had an incredible amount of cars coming through each day, traffic coming through each day. We're not capturing them. And so these are things that Alan, we worked with Alan Plattis. And so Alan is very, very familiar with Woodbridge. He lives in Westville. And so he's very, what? I didn't know that. And so he's very engaged. So I think, while I'd love for you to come in and do all of this, I think actually we can probably start maybe midway on that project, because a lot of the legwork and the analysis of where the trailhead should be, the fact that we don't have any municipal space in our business district has already been done.
Thank you. Okay. Jamie, you want to say something?
I just have a question.
Sure.
If I may. If Bob and Courtney could just address how this ultimately can help our entire community. If we're talking about the economics of the Amity region, but how does this sort of plan actually benefit our entire community?
We've been doing a lot of work lately on the health of grand lists around Connecticut. Since the recession in 2008, 138 of our 169 towns have not seen the residential component of their grand list go back to where it was prior to the recession. Those are the assets on which you afford to provide services to your residents. You have an unusually high component of your grand list that's in residential development. That's not surprising for suburban communities. The question is, can you get more productivity for the whole community out of what you do have in commercial and industrial? And the answer is yes. We did an analysis for the town of Fairfield where they have 4.9% of their property in commercial and industrial. And it provides 10% of the revenues to the town. That's usually the case, that you're going to see much more productivity out of commercial and industrial property. So it allows you to, if we're successful, it it provides you the latitude to possibly not raise the mill rate on residential if you can instead grow the commercial and industrial component of the grand list. There is going to be, I'm preaching to the choir, I know that. There is going to be increased strain on grand lists going forward. It's not only the value of the grand list, it's the fact that maybe you didn't have to pay teacher retirement this year, but they're going to work it in somehow. Maybe you'll do it over 5 years, but it's still going to be an increased burden. And if you don't have additional sources of revenue, then you want your grand list to be very productive. I'd say that's the benefit. Thank you. Yep.
And just adding to that, when I was assistant town manager in Enfield, my main charge was to revitalize Thompsonville. For those of you who aren't familiar, that's the largest urban neighborhood north of Hartford. So that was going to be a struggle, and it certainly was a challenge. But I spent 3 years, to your question, Jamie, convincing, or trying to at least convince the rest of the community that what was going to be good for Thompsonville in terms of revitalization was going to be good for the entire community, because frankly, we were going to increase the commercial tax base. Why? And we were going to allow it to become more of a destination, which, to your point earlier, that brings more people in, and then they start to spend, whether it be there or other neighborhoods in town. So I think your question is a good one about Amity specifically, and you probably will have a little bit of that pushback that we can get in front of.
Well, there are 2 parcels of land on either side of Bradley Road along Litchfield Turnpike that had a potential project which is not gone anywhere. And part of that was going to be retail space, and part of it was going to be residential. And I think that really is an area that that might be utilized for commercial purposes. I have some ideas, but
It's okay.
We'll talk to you soon. The other thing is what type of residential, if you're going to do residential.
well, that's the other thing. We're pretty clear that we need to keep the expenses of the town down. So if we're going to put in non-age restricted housing, it's going to wind up costing the town, money net.
And there's an analysis we can do there too. But I do think if you've looked at where millennials want to live, this is the big question today. And of course, we shouldn't talk about a generation as if they all act the same way. But at the margin, are they going to make different decisions than other generations represented here? And the answer is yes, but what is it? And just this week, there was a report coming out of Washington that said some of them that are in the urban apartments that are so popular right now they're getting to be 30, 34, and this one couple has a 6-month-old, and the 6-month-old is in a crib in the living room, and they want a little more room, but they want to be in like a duplex or something like that, rather than a separate, home on an acre or 2 of land. And there may be opportunities for that type of development in Amity.
That's interesting. Well, if no other board member have any questions, what I'd like to propose is, it sounds like you've done some of the assessment already. So what I would perhaps recommend, I'll just throw this out there and then we can talk about what I think we should start with, is perhaps inviting CERC to analyze our grand list, because I think we really need to have someone look at it and maybe try to see where the potential is to grow it would be. I don't know if that's something you can get out from analyzing it, but at least start with that. And then perhaps I know EDC does not meet in December, correct? So if you would like to start with perhaps start with the commission and attend maybe the January, February meeting, and you guys get together and maybe beforehand talk about it and meet with the commission, see what they have to say, and anyone who's interested in attending, I'm certainly would be welcome to join. And as far as the cost, we'd have to figure out what we can do, whether we have to do a funding request or it's something that we perhaps have funding for already in our budget. I don't know if Tony has some thoughts on that. I asked him to look at it just in case.
To staff the EDC for at least 2 months we'd have in the budget. That wouldn't be a problem. And depending on the analysis for the grand list, I would imagine we can talk about that formally, but I'm anticipating that we should have that in the budget as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, that was not, if you're looking, that is not in what we presented to you.
Yep.
It came up in a
I don't,
conversation.
right,
Talked
we
about it
talked
in the
about it, and I
conversation,
thought I
yeah.
would throw it out there, what you guys
Well, that's
think
fine.
about
I was
it.
just going to ask for part of that.
It's not in
It's not
there.
And we'll give you something specific on it, but the timing was very interesting because we had a group of all of the councils of governments in our office yesterday, and we presented to them on some of the issues that I described about the grand lists. And we decided that we were going to start offering this as a service. So if we do it for you, I hope this doesn't bother you, you would be the first town we did it for. And so we are willing to give you a very reasonable price because we want the interaction with you to see how it goes. So we'll get something to Beth and to Tony on that.
Can we get
Price-wise.
a revised proposal to include that? In other words, this plus that?
It would be,
And then- No, that would be of interest to me. and then-
Sure.
Okay, when we hear from them, we can send it out to you, as far as that piece of the puzzle. And my thought was to just start with that, simply, and then perhaps we'll get you guys come back to us in March. We'll see how things are working out and go from there.
So it's-
Rather than doing the whole thing, I don't know.
That's fine with
But
us.
that's up to the board. I'm only one person. I just thought it's a
Well,
start.
the comprehensive plan and implementation support as currently proposed is $12,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then the addition of this reduced, great, fantastic price you're going to give to us.
special.
On this,
It's on sale
grand list
today,
analysis.
but only today.
I don't know what that'll bring it to,
I think if we went to the,
12,500.
if we went to the,
But if you saw that, I don't, maybe.
I think if we went to the full proposal, we'd have to do.
I have to do a funding request,
big
which we
funding
could do next
request
month.
and-
To Tony,
Yeah.
let's say it's 15,000, I don't know,
Yeah.
Right.
until we get the, but, how does that, how do we find that?
So
Do
the
we
question
have
is,
anything?
timing-wise, how that would all work, and which portion of this would we put in next year's budget versus what would we have to commit to now? I'm not sure how much of this will actually be necessary initially, or,
I guess that would rely on,
but if you do this the assessment, and I mean, it might take some time to do all this stuff, but the long and short of it is we have to do a funding request, because it would be a contingency request.
so the money's in.
Correct, yeah.
Mhm. But right now,
At
we
least at
wouldn't
this
have to.
point.
put
At this
a
point, it
contingency.
has some-
We don't have to.
And the
put
other
a
thing we were
contingency
thinking
for
was-
what I'm proposing.
No, I understand.
The other thing we were thinking was, if we wait, especially till March anyway, we'll have a better idea of how our contingency fund is doing. Typically by March, we would know about the storms, winter storms, and the other things that sometimes trip us up or cause contingency funds. But that's a risk you would take.
So it's up to you
I guess
guys.
it really doesn't matter, the price isn't gonna change either way, right? Whether we do it all or do it.
Or do it in pieces as we
Right,
go,
but if we
right?
do some of it tonight, we can get them started. They can go in January, February to EDC meetings, and then come back in March, and should we decide to continue to fund, depending on, basically we get input back from EDC as to how it's working out, how you guys feel it's going, and what you would make recommendations to us at the March Board of Selectmen meeting.
I guess what we're
But
doing
it's
is.
up to you.
Is we're replacing the self-assess, in this work scope that you gave, we're replacing the self-assessment with the grand list analysis. Which I don't know what it is, because that was conversation, so, but is that accurate? Because you didn't lay that out in your proposal, so my question
We
would be.
didn't, but we would still recommend doing the self-assessment, whether it be now or next fiscal year.
Well, I guess my
Maybe after they.
question is because you laid it out that way, is the
Mhm.
self-assessment a necessary first step for the rest of it to be effective? No? So we can do that at any time.
Correct.
And maybe they'll get better input from Jody, because she mentioned some of the stuff had been done. I don't know if that was part of the self-assessment, was part of the stuff that had been done?
I think more of the groundwork of just looking at the geography of the region, actual businesses in the region has already been done, and in terms of the traffic flow. We met with, as we were proposing what we envisioned the business district to look like, we did meet with the property owners, and the residents who chose to meet with us. What I would have to say, in looking at the grand list, I'm not sure if it's that big a job, honestly. I looked quickly at what you had on your website, because I tried to get the information from the town, but you actually have it on your website, the top 6 or so. Connecticut Light and Power is the largest property owner in town, commercial property owner in town, because of the towers that run through the town. The next 2 or 3, it looks like, I believe one of the senior living facilities is the next one. The third one, I believe, is the other senior living facility. They have changed their names, so I can't say. And the next 2, I believe, were just commercial property owners. So I think we have a unique grand list that may not take that much time to analyze, because it's going to drop off pretty quickly. I think at that point we were down to about a $4 million value when you got to number 5. So I don't know that I don't know that our grand list is that deep. Honestly.
No, I appreciate that. We haven't fully scoped this, but let me give you a sense in addition to understanding, the properties. What has been a 20-year trend in the residential component of your grand list? Do we anticipate, based on economic conditions, that grand list will continue to grow? What rate will it grow at? What is the balance between the commercial component of the grand list and the residential component of the grand list? What are your options as far as density with regard to what is already zoned commercial? And is there any appetite for increasing the amount of property that's zoned? These are all questions, by the way. I'm just putting them out there. But it's the types of things, the types of questions we want you to be able to answer with more authority, based on a better understanding of what's in the grand
So you're
list.
really doing an economic analysis of the grand list, not just an analysis of the grand list.
Right.
That makes sense actually to me, because then once you analyze that, then you actually can create questions throughout the community with. So at this point, I don't know that we have questions that we want answered. But once you really do that you're going to go back 20 years, you think, or
We haven't really scoped it, but I
That could be a very helpful tool.
I think
Yeah.
that would be extraordinarily helpful, and that's not something that Yale touched on at all.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be
What
very
would be helpful for me to
Yeah.
What would be helpful to me to understand the scope of your work would be to look at some of the completed projects that you've done, so you can actually get an idea of what the possibilities are and what you've been successful at bringing to these towns.
Sure.
Do you have it on your website, or could you get that to us?
We have case studies on our website, yes. And if there are others that you think, we'll think about it too, which ones might
Okay.
be most.
And if you have something, you can get it to Mrs. Shaw, and she can
Great.
send it out to all of us. That'd be
Okay.
great. Okay. So,
So we'll
someone
get a
like
revised proposal, and then what do we do next? We have to decide what we're going to do.
I think what we are doing tonight is going to authorize them to begin doing the grand list. I guess it's not an assessment, it's more of a, what would you call what you proposed?
Analysis.
Analysis.
We'll give you a proposal for that.
Yep.
Okay,
That'll be the next thing for us there.
all right.
Because if we approve it tonight, we don't even know how much.
We don't know, right? Okay, good point.
We certainly.
It would be better to get the fully revised proposal.
Okay,
than-
so we'll get that from
With the
you.
EDC.
Just a thought, there's not another EDC meeting probably until after your next meeting anyway.
Right.
There's no
So,
particular
Right.
time.
if you
Joe,
could-
do you want to?
Yeah, just in terms of timing, I mean, Janie can weigh in on this, but it may be helpful to have, when you start with the EDC, if you have a portion of that completed, as opposed to just sitting in and getting to know us. Our meetings typically, we tend to talk, we meet a new business, we like to bring some business in, we talk about different things that are occurring in town, different projects we're working on. But if we had you in with this analysis, then we could really get to the meat. And so I might think that it might be best use of the town's resources to push off the staffing until this
Sure.
is a little further on.
If that would work better for you guys, I think that's
I mean,
fine. Okay.
I just.
All right, so we'll bring
we
it
don't
up
need hand-holding,
again.
we
That's
need-
fine.
we need,
I'm just, I want to hit the ground running
Yeah,
with
yeah, no, but
all of
I
these
think-
things because they're so important.
Yeah, no,
you
this
know.
is really important, but
Right.
I think
Okay.
if we can have this, then we really would have something to work with.
Okay, so we have our next meeting on January 10th, so we'll have something from you,
Yep.
a revised proposal of some kind for those items that we talked about on January 10th with the cost for the grand list proposal, and then we'll vote on it, and you guys get going, and you'll staff EDC, I guess, then beginning, depending on that, I guess beginning in February, correct? Okay. How does that sound?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Is that all
Thank
good
you.
with the board? Everybody have any more questions, or board's happy? Okay. Thank you. Thanks for staying in the cold weather and our little... Okay, thank you. I guess now we'll move to item 6, back up at the top of the agenda, which is our survey of the CCW. I'd like to invite to come up to the chair Rick Bordeaux, who's a social studies teacher at Amity High School and a resident of Woodbridge. He came to teaching as a second career. In his previous career, he did professional polling and statistical analysis at J.D. Power and Associates for consumer product and market research, and previously at Greenberg Lake, the Analysis Group, public opinion polling. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Rick, and thank you very much for coming and meeting with us a couple times and beginning us on the road to do the survey.
My pleasure.
And for volunteering with your time, and also to your students. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. So just to give you a little bit of background on this, I was approached by Sheila McCraven beginning of the fall, and she had this idea, and she had discussed with Dr. Chip DeMay at Amity about doing a survey, but wanted to getting the community involved and getting the high school.
It was actually the board's idea to do the survey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not you facilitated it. Yeah, right.
And Sheila and I have known each other for almost 20 years now, and because I have done other pro bono work, survey work for the town. Well, that wasn't for the town, but here in town. And when she asked me if I would be interested in it would be something that we want to do at the school, I said, I think this is a great idea. And I talked to my administration, talked to Anna May, my principal, and we start coordinating it. And so what we plan on doing is we're going to field a survey. We're starting the design phase right now. And like I said, I'm spearheading it on the school side, but we're also incorporating other teachers, the stats, people that teach statistics. They're going to help with the data analysis. People who are in critical issues classes or taking AP Gov is going to help with the analysis portion of it, because this is right up their alley as far as local service is concerned. We've had some discussions whether or not this is going to also be involved with the community service learning projects, the service learning project that they do at the end of the year. Maybe this will be credit for that as well. So, but at this point in time, where we are, it was the survey development piece of it. So we have had one face-to-face meeting earlier this fall, and then we had a telephone meeting just to design the survey, start the design of the survey instrument. So that's where we are right now. And a draft survey has been produced, and I'm pretty sure that has been distributed.
Yeah.
We sent it out on Friday, so everybody had good time to take a look at it.
And let me emphasize that this is a draft, but as far as where we are, and so where we are in the process right now is that we still have, we plan on trying to finalize the survey. We have about a month to finalize the survey in order to, if we want to still go into the field. Right now we're discussing going into the field in the middle of January and be in the field for a couple weeks. And then from that, analysis phase would be in February. Top line results to you people here would be mid-March, and then the results presented to the Board of Selectmen at the April meeting. So that's the current plan. Obviously, that if we need to work on that timeline, that's fine, but that's the current plan. And right now we're on schedule for that. Okay. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Everyone had a chance to look at the survey. Any questions, Terry?
I have a few questions. What's the method for distribution for the survey?
Method's going to be mail, and the sample frame is going to be households. So we're going to mail it to households, every household in the town of Woodbridge.
And is there any type of numbering system so that you can make sure that a survey isn't duplicated?
Yes. It would be mailed out to each people in the household, and we've discussed whether or not we could identify each one that goes to the household or not, but we wouldn't, the survey would be distributed on cardstock like this. So it's not like we would want somebody to photocopy it, and we could tell them to photocopy, something like that. We're going to allow people to return it either mail it here, or there'll be places to drop it off here at Town Hall if they want to do it that as well. But it's not like, well, there will be safeguards put in place, so it's not like somebody stuffing the ballot box,
Right.
so to speak.
That's what I was worried about, people making copies and then sending it in and
Yes.
skewing the results. Okay. Joe, do you have any questions at all? Joe? Dr. Lober?
I have a bunch of questions. I see
Yes,
a
sir.
hand up in the audience. Will we take a question from the audience?
I think so, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi. Were there any guidelines given to you before this in terms of how you should proceed?
No, not guidelines per se. They told me what they were interested in finding out, and we sat down and we talked, and then as we were discussing it, I suggested to them what would be the best methodology for that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank you for taking this on. I mean, this is
Pleasure.
wonderful. I also want to thank you for being an inspirational teacher to my son.
Which is also my pleasure.
Okay.
He was very taken. As a matter of fact, he is now pursuing a career in business. I don't know if you had anything to do with it, but they probably had some influence. So I'm looking over these questions,
Yes.
and what jumps out at me is that, first of all, some of these questions are multifaceted.
Just there.
And my issue with multifaceted questions is that when you have one piece of that question that somebody doesn't like, then the entire question becomes a no. And the first one, is one of those.
Please circle the 4 things you like best about Woodbridge.
What's that?
I'm
sorry. I'm looking at question number 3.
Oh, okay.
3A, right?
3A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if we look at this question, we have return to the previous arrangement, the recreation department operates the pool, and the town increases taxes to subsidize the operation, takes on additional bonded debt to fund infrastructure needs of the golf course and building. I mean, to me, that's a non-starter question. I don't think anyone's going to say, I want to take on additional debt to fund the golf course. So when I look at a question like that, I'm saying, well, what do I really want to know? I really want to know, A, are people interested in any form of golf at the country club? Okay. I would take the pool out of that question, put that as a separate question, or not at all, because I think the town has every intention of continuing to run the pool. And then the third part, the town increases taxes. I think that should be a separate question, further down the road.
Okay.
And I've written some, additional.
Well, to address your concern.
Okay, that's number 1.
Okay.
Okay, that's question number 1.
Do you want him to answer?
Well, I have a global
that
comment.
one?
Okay.
You're absolutely right. There's different ways to propose these things. And the way we decided to go down the road of putting in a bundle like this, because this is the way they would be proposed to the town. So that people would, and to the townspeople, so this is the way they would consider the whole thing.
They're
put it
a way
together.
they could be proposed.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Not necessarily would be.
Right. Your concern about what are they reacting to? If they're reacting to one person reacting to one negative thing in there and shooting it down for another
that's
person.
part of it, yeah.
That's absolutely it's a good point. What could be, but if you ask, if you actually do it like a la carte and say, well, what do you want this? Do you want this? But then, what are you going to do with that information when you're done with it? And that's what you need to think about.
Right.
So does that mean, based on that input, we're going to have this piece is good, but this piece is good, maybe this piece is good, and then you put it all together, and it's not necessarily together. It wouldn't work so well. But to get at your concern, there is a way to propose it like this, but then maybe ask a follow-up question to each one of these. Well, what about this did you like? What about this did you like? What about this did you not like? And have maybe questions right under that and they can check off, well, I like this, but I didn't like this. And that I think that could handle both what I'm talking about and then your concerns as well.
But there's a complex way of doing things, and then there's a simple, straightforward way of doing things. And I think the simple, straightforward way of doing things is, number one, easier for people to answer, and number two, gives you a better return on your question.
Yeah.
So that's question number one. The other thing that I have issue with is this 0 to 10 gradation.
Okay.
I think these are really binary kinds of questions. Do you want it or not? I mean, I was talking to Beth the other day, and I said, you come home and you say, you know, your wife says to you, honey, how do you feel about starting a family? He goes, I'm about a 6. Well, see, that doesn't work. You know, that's a binary question. You know, and you don't ask the question, well, how do you feel about starting a family, knowing that we're going to have to move out of this apartment, get a bigger house, we're going to have to buy a minivan, we're going to have to save for a college fund. You know, that's all of that. You know, complicate, muddies the water, so to speak.
I respectfully disagree on that these things are binary. I think it's very valuable to find out these gradations. And I strongly believe, I think this is a great idea. Well, I'm kind of on the fence on some of these things. Or I could be convinced that this would be all right if this is tweaked or something like that. Right. So I think there is value to figuring that out. I've used the scale for years, and I know how to analyze it. Where normally I would take the 8, 9, and 10 and box it, and say that's this top 3 box, and then try to and use that information and see what percentage is top 3 box on this versus top 3 box on that. It would be very interesting to me if the scale distribution is a little bit different than I was expecting. Then I would look at that. Well, maybe I don't box it that way. Maybe I analyze it in a different way. This would give me the opportunity and the flexibility to do that instead of just going binary on all these things.
Okay, so supposing you ask this question A in its present form, and it comes back a 6. So what would you get out of that?
Well, one person would say 6, another person would say 7. I wouldn't report back on that. I don't. When I analyze these things, I don't report back on averages. I capture the average, and just for informational purposes. But I'm more interested in seeing what percentage are gravitating toward different parts of the scale. I think that's more of a powerful analytical tool.
And how is that more useful in a binary distribution of yes or no?
It's more because the world isn't, in my mind, the world isn't black and white like that. And so it gives the survey respondent an opportunity to, if there is a little bit of gradation, it gives them the opportunity to do that. Because they may just yes or no, well, it depends. And it gives them a chance to deal with that depends. And then I can analyze it. If I have a lot of people depending, that's something that I think would be very interesting for the town to know.
That it? Your questions?
You want me to go over all the questions?
Oh, no, I think I passed them along. I passed them along.
Yes, I did. I have.
Because you said it was okay. He has them.
You see my intent.
Oh, I do. I do, and I saw that. My first reaction to it, you have a very good point.
I'm glad you agree with that.
So, but I'm willing to work with the board. We have a month.
Right.
So,
we have time.
Like I said,
we thought maybe we could try to schedule a special meeting just to do this.
Absolutely.
With, a public meeting to go over all of this. And Mika also gave me some input, which I can share with you as well. Where did I put it? Because he called me this afternoon. Where did he put? Okay, well, I guess I'll have to. Oh, he was very. I know what it was. One of the big things he thought was to have, since it's labeled as Woodbridge Country Club Land Use Survey, start with number 3 as the first question, and take 1 and 2, which is sort of demographical, and put it at the end.
Okay.
So people that's just something that kind of made sense to me, actually.
And I'm fine. And just a little bit more background. The town did a survey in 2003.
Right, and that's going to give you,
And question number 1 and 2 and some of the demographics are the same, so we can actually track and see what's different about the town now than it was then.
Right.
And I thought that would be interesting.
And I think having Mika here as well for our next meeting would be helpful. He had surgery and just got out of the hospital today, so he can't be here. So I'd like to have his input.
The other question is, in terms of distribution, why would you not do this online?
You would think that in a community like ours that a lot of people are online, not everybody's online.
Really?
Yes.
My mother won't answer.
Well, you're gonna go to your mother.
No, I'm not gonna, because I don't want to
And I've,
bias her.
I do have extensive experience. One of the firms I work for, not one of the ones listed, but another one, we specialize in mail service. So this, if you design correctly, you can get the target is a 25% response rate, and that's enough to make an accurate extrapolation to the rest of the population.
And my suggestion was that people would not return the survey unless it was accompanied by a self-addressed stamped envelope. Would that be an accurate assessment?
We have the Dropbox.
we are going to have a Dropbox. If the budget allows, that would be nice. But
Yeah, I don't think we don't have a budget
We don't have a
yet.
budget.
We don't have a budget yet. We'll have that for that meeting as
Okay.
well.
Yes.
Because it's obviously going to cost more to mail out something that's thicker and, you know, different
And,
household.
but-
So we gotta,
But to your point, and I'm talking my target response rate is 25%.
25%.
is that good or?
That's good.
I think that's terrible, but I'm not a statistician,
That's good.
really. So our job is to get everybody out there, and I'm going to put it in my newsletter as soon as, you know, heads up, guys, got to get this out returned, and hopefully we'll hear from a lot of people.
What's the voting in national elections? 40%, 50%?
Oh dear.
Except yesterday.
Yeah, except yesterday, I know, huh? That was interesting. Okay, so I think, anybody have anything else to talk to Rick about? Sure.
What kind of time
You have to
frame
state, you have to state your name and for the
Richard
record.
Brick from Johnson Road.
Yep.
What kind of time frame are we looking at to have this completed?
From right now until when we're done?
Right until when you have the results
The
of the
results
survey.
should be publicly announced based on the current timetable at the April Board of Selectmen meeting.
It seems like a lot of time is going to go by before we have anything to really look at. I mean, this is December, it's going to be April. If we wanted to, let's say, there wanted to be something done with the course, you're going to lose a whole nother year before you have a chance to do anything.
I'm hoping it doesn't happen. Maybe we'll get to it quickly with a referendum, depending on what we get. I just don't know. I know.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I wanted to address. I think the timeline for our response and analysis should be compressed. And I was also wondering if we could get the raw data as you're analyzing it, so we get an idea of what's going on.
I actually think this timeline is accurate. We do want to do it right, and I'm not getting paid for this. So, and I do, and I'm sure Dr. Dumais would much rather have me teach the children of Bambi on a daily basis, correct the homework and lesson planning, than do the survey for the town. So that drives part. But it also, in order to do this, and based on this conversation, I think we're going to need a month to come together with a survey that we're all happy with. So, and then at the back end, that's how long it does take. It does take that long. As soon as I can release results, when you say raw data results, if I know something and I know I can let you know some top line things, I would get those to you as fast as possible.
Yeah, that was the other reason I was proposing binary questions, because the data analysis is so quick.
Well, this could be, and I can set up an analysis plan while we're in the field, so when the data comes back, I just plug it into the computer and we'll crunch it. But then it's like, yes, I'll get numbers back, but then the art in public opinion research is what do those numbers mean? So we would all sit down and say, okay, what is this? This number is here, this number is this number is this. What does that mean? And that sometimes takes some time. But as far as getting you numbers, I would get you numbers as fast as possible.
Perhaps to Richard's point, I don't propose to talk to the whole board, but maybe we can start thinking about in our budget, pending this, the results, what we're going to do to keep it at least looking nice over there. I know we're going to go ahead with the pool for sure, and at least we can put something in our budget or vote to just at least clean it up, keep it mowed or whatever. We'll do that as a board. I won't forget, we are stewards of that land right now, and we have to pending your proposal, so, and what we decide to do.
Okay.
So we'll keep on it.
All right.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay.
Not from Mr. Bordeaux. For the
Uh-oh.
board.
Okay.
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 All right.
Thank
Again,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
I didn't mean to give you a hard time.
No.
You know, I need to.
Well, I didn't mean to give you a hard time.
No.
No hard time.
I wanted
It's
to
the
share my
season, we're all
concerns.
friends.
We all want
Yeah.
what's best for the town.
We're all friends. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
No more hard times.
Joe, you wanted to bring up something else related to this right now? We do have to, I think it's a good idea if you guys think to schedule another meeting just to do this.
Yeah,
What
should
do
we
you
get a
guys
special
think?
meeting on the calendar?
Yeah.
And I think
Maybe,
guys
we
covered.
do we
It's
have a
like
special
4
meeting?
I thought you said today 4 weeks was his.
We normally keep the fourth Wednesday of the month.
So
free
that
for a
would be
special
the-
meeting, and that would be December 27th.
You don't want to see it.
But I don't think you
I
want
think
me
that's
out.
not a great week.
No.
That's a very bad week.
I'm just thinking it's in between Christmas and New Year's, right?
Exactly. It's not
No.
a good week.
Okay, so maybe you could find some dates and
Sure.
we'll get together tomorrow and we'll send you out some proposals and we'll pick the one that everybody can come to. And we'll make sure Mika's available as well, because I think he had some really good input and some thoughts for me. So we'll do that. Okay, and we'll
Right, we just have
publicly
to be
notice
sure
it.
to have you, work with Mr. Bordeaux on the
Right, he's got to be at this as well. Right? Okay, thank you. Anything else on that? Okay, great. Thank you all for getting started on this. Now, let's see. The trail runners are not going to be here this evening. They're not ready to propose something to us. We'll move down to town council's report. Mr. Weiner.
Okay, very, very short. I have something on the agenda. I asked the update on the Town Plan and Zoning Commission, and I think Joe, in his report about P&Z, pretty much said it all, but I just want to let everybody hear that the Town Plan and Zoning Commission has been working on a revision and taking a close look at the zoning regulations of the town. And at some point, not in the not too distant future, we expect them to have some recommendations for the board, recommendations and action items for them to take at their P&Z meetings. We're trying to hopefully stay, Beth is in contact with them to see what those proposed changes will be, and hopefully in the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll have a better handle on where they're going and what they're doing.
I presume those are mostly down in the Amity district. right?
Most of it is in the Amity district, and they actually hired a planner who was working with the P&Z on
Leslie, yeah.
that. Leslie.
But shouldn't there be interaction? I mean, that's going to have an impact on what we
On
just
CERC.
discussed
Yes.
here with CERC. So
Yeah.
somehow we're going to have to coordinate this.
Yes.
We
I
can't
wish-
go in two different directions.
Right. And I think Leslie has met with EDC, hasn't she? Gone?
I don't know.
I think she has. I think
I
she's
don't
met
know.
with EDC. She'll
I guess I'm just suggesting to the board
I'm pretty
that
sure
we
she-
better keep our watch out and make sure that this is all being
I'm so
tied
glad you're here. That's a
together
good
instead
idea.
of,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very important.
Right. They've got to look at, probably they're going to want to take a look at our plan of conservation development. I think he mentioned that to me when we were talking on the phone yesterday, that he was willing to do that as well to make sure they're not doing anything that conflicts with that. They might even perhaps use that to plan some of their, to go forward with their plan with economic development.
Can we bring a member of the chairman of the planning and zoning to our meetings to give us an update on what's going on?
Sure.
He can't
As a
speak on particular items that is on their agenda, but he can certainly talk about the plan, the role, what they're doing in terms of planning proposed amendments to the zoning regulations. But he can't speak about particular applications.
Because they can
not about
change
particular
those
application.
without us.
They can change it on their own.
Yep.
Exactly.
The
So,
board has no
like,
no
tomorrow
authority
they
or
can
jurisdiction
change
over
those, and
the.
that may impact what CERC,
Yes.
what ideas
Mhm.
they have. So I think that's what we have to.
Okay. So is everyone of the opinion that we should bring Mr. Kaufman to our meeting? Yet or not yet?
I think I think it's a great idea, but I
Mhm.
think wait until they have it more fine-tuned in terms of what they know they're going to be doing. And
The
then-
plan and zoning.
Planning and zoning,
Okay.
yeah, and then he should come.
Right, but
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of suggesting that you suggest the planning and zoning that they don't take any action until we figure out where we are with certain.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we can pass that
And we
along.
can definitely pass
I
that
would be
on.
happy to
Good
pass
idea.
that along.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I mean, planning.
What kind of what kind of action? I'm just curious. Like,
Well, they can change the zone.
They can
okay,
change the regulations, and these guys could be saying one thing, and then they can find out that they can't do
One
it
of
because
one
they
of their
changed the
members is in the audience.
right? Because I think in that CERC report they said they specifically said working in conjunction with the town's planning and zoning
Yes.
and the EDC,
Right.
and it sounds like they really need to before they come to the board. Those three groups right there need to meet and kind of get all on the same page.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
But as a matter of, I mean, that's all great, but there could be a meeting in January that we don't, well, you know about it because it's public. But
Right.
P&Z
Yeah, but it just
could-
appears on
could
the
vote
agenda
to
and
change
poof.
the zoning rules. They
Yeah.
don't come to us for any kind of approval. So.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they have to have a public meeting with comment?
Yep.
before they can
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
They have to have a
Yeah,
public hearing.
but
Right.
then, but then they get to decide.
Of course, we as citizens have a right or an
Right.
opportunity to go to a public meeting and speak on,
Right. Sure.
not
All of
necessarily
that.
as the board, but as our individual selves, to
It's
say,
all public.
hey guys, it's right, it's all
But
public.
the point is, we don't control it.
Right.
They control it. So,
Don't you think we should have some input into that process as it's developing, as opposed to commenting on it after it's been done?
But by statute, you don't have the right to do it because the Planning and Zoning Commission is a statutory body and they have the absolute discretion and authority to do what they want to do.
They only get to take input from us,
You can go to a meeting and then
Right.
see if you can be recognized.
if they want.
if they want to, if they choose to. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll pass that along to all three. That we hope they can get together. Okay. And anything on the update on the Motorola Solutions
The
Inc.
Motorola,
contract?
as you know, you had the special town meeting the other night, which approved the bonding for this system. And the second phase of that is to approve a contract that will be the basis of the expenditure. So I have a draft contract for Motorola. I have the name of Motorola's lawyer. I called today and I'm waiting for it to call back. And we want to get it done by either having a letter of intent or a contract by the end of the month so we can, as Sean Rowland mentioned, we can take advantage of any possible discounts. So that's also underway as well.
Okay.
And
Now
the one
that-
other,
Okay, so we would approve that?
yes. Well, you'd have to approve it so Beth can sign it. It would come to you, the contract would come to you. And the contract would be specifically subject to approval by you and the Board of Finance. And that has to be done by, we may not need the approvals this month, but we certainly have to have an agreement that they will give us the discount subject to the approvals of the Board of Finance.
Okay. Any questions on that or anything else for Jerry?
The discounts were on hardware. I mean,
I think it was
there's
on
a
hardware,
component
right?
of training and things in that too. I mean, there's some, my point is, I guess there were some potential components in that 2.1 million that we may or may not.
That's
Correct.
true.
That's
And
true.
there's
That's why
also
I'm-
portions of the Motorola system itself, which is a subset of the 2.1 million,
Right.
that haven't been resolved yet.
Right. So that,
Exactly what we're gonna do.
How much
This
is
con- what is this contract? What's the scope of this contract? Is it
The scope of the contract is for the hardware, right?
Yeah, and the installation of that
And the
hardware.
installation of the hardware.
okay? So that I think we're okay.
Yes,
It should be.
because
Okay.
that's where the discounts
Oh,
are.
not quite, but
That's
right.
we're
Well, we will be before we sign this.
before we sign the contract,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, we're doing
But not
a little,
before the 31st.
We're doing
but-
a little due diligence.
But not
on
before
it.
the 31st.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the training and things is not part of the scope of this.
You talk when you say training, you mean about the disk software and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
the
Yeah, that's
software.
not part of this.
That's
It's
not
totally
part of this
separate.
contract.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
totally
and-
separate. Yeah.
And I'll just add again that I am planning to appoint an ad hoc committee to just
Right.
sort of just make sure that everything is looked at, everything's, what a night.
It's not my fault.
Okay, it is, I know, okay. We have a fire, we have phones ringing, it's just been very interesting. Anyway, just to make sure that they'll do the due diligence for us and then bring it to us each month. So we haven't, it's almost like a building committee, as I mentioned, but they're not building anything but a radio system. So, anyway, so I will
just
keep
have
you
one
informed.
other
Sure, sure,
Just
sorry.
just a point of information on the other, there was a lawsuit that was instituted against the town by a former Woodbridge police officer claiming that he was terminated because of a disability. And the lawsuit was filed. We turned it over to our insurance company. The plaintiff, the officer who was attorney, wanted to settle. We said that we weren't going to settle, and the insurance company has covered the claim, and they hired their own lawyer, and they're defending the town in that case. And we just found out the other day that the town won a motion for summary judgment, and the case was dismissed based on summary judgment. So there's no claim against us right now. The lawyer indicated that he thought the plaintiff would appeal because the end of the road for them. So if they appeal, we'll continue it on. But right now, it was a very good decision for us.
Good.
Keep in mind on our insurance policies, when we get the insurance company to take control of these cases, we have a $10,000
Deductible, right?
So we pay that. It's not a free ride at all, so we have to pay the $10,000.
That includes the defense cost.
Correct.
That
That's
is-
what it is,
The
basically.
defense cost very quickly gets to $10,000
Yeah.
for those cases. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Imagine.
Really?
Like doctors.
I wish.
Oh, okay.
Lawyers don't take Medicare.
Yeah, oh boy.
No, most doctors will.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jerry. I think we'll move on to, I think I asked Tony, double-checked. I
That's
think
it,
I've got
just the
everything
meeting dates.
except meeting
Yeah.
dates. So if you will return, in your packet, you have very nicely written out and checked by Mr. Shaw the regular meeting dates for the 2018 calendar year. So hopefully everyone had a chance to take a look at those. And I will make a motion that we approve the 2018 meeting dates for the regular Board of Selectmen meetings. Is there a second?
So moved.
Thank you. Anybody have any corrections, additions, questions?
I unfortunately didn't get a chance to see. Are they the,
Regular,
the same
second
schedule?
Wednesday of the month, right? There's, I think,
Yeah.
except for Tuesday, February 20th, that's an additional budget
That's the budget
recommendations to the
meeting,
Board
right.
of Finance. I think pretty much everything
Well,
ended
yeah,
up
we
being,
didn't vary from.
I don't think so.
Them with all the holidays.
Holidays.
Yeah,
One
okay.
year I know we did because of Jewish holidays.
Yeah, right. Right, okay. So we have a motion, a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And I have two quick things. I just want to wish everybody a very happy what's left of the holiday season. It's coming fast, and a very prosperous and peaceful 2018. And just a reminder, because I forgot in my report, Santa and Mrs. Claus is at the firehouse this coming Saturday from 12 to 3, and it's free. So come and give Santa your wishes. And on that note, motion to adjourn? Somebody please. Second? Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.